Good evening and thank you for joining us. This is a public meeting and hearing for the draft Class 3 modification to the hazardous waste operating permit for DeMenno, Kerdoon, Compton, located at 2000 North Alameda Street. My name is Elsa Lopez. I am the Public Participation Specialist with the Department of Toxic Substances Control, and I'll be your meeting facilitator this evening. If you need technical assistance, please use the raise hand feature on the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. This meeting is being recorded. By participating in this meeting, you are agreeing to be recorded. Paulette?
Buenas tardes y gracias por acompañarnos. Esta es una reunión de audiencia pública para el borrador de modificación de clase 3 al permiso de operación de residuos peligrosos para DeMenno Kerdoon, Compton, ubicado en 2000 North Alameda Street. Mi nombre es Paulette Penton y estoy a su servicio para traducciones al español de parte del Departamento de Control de Sustancias Tóxicas. Si usted necesita traducciones al español o necesita asistencia técnica, por favor utilizar la función de levantar la mano en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Esta reunión está siendo grabada y al participar en esta reunión, usted acepta ser grabado. Muchas gracias.
Okay. Before I continue, we do have someone asking why the chat is disabled. We are in a Zoom webinar, and if you have any questions, you can actually put them in the Q&A. Thank you. Next slide. Presentation materials in both English and Spanish are available in the Projects EnviroStar webpage at envirostar.dtsc.ca.gov/public, PUBLIC, and search for the DeMenno Kerdoon Compton in the search toolbar. Closed captions are on for this meeting. You can move the box or turn off by clicking the CC icon. Next slide. Meeting agreements. To ensure that all meeting participants can fully participate, we developed the following agreements. This is a shared space, so please be conscious of this and courteous to your fellow meeting attendees. Be mindful of the space you are taking up and give others the opportunity to express themselves as well. You may be muted at any time during this meeting to ensure all meeting participants receive the same information, and especially those joining receiving interpretation. Please speak clearly and at an even pace. The Q&A feature is enabled, and you can use it to type questions throughout the presentation. Please wait for the public comment period to provide public comments for the record. Next slide. For today's agenda, we have Ryan Batty, the Permitting Division Supervisor, will go over DTSC's role on this project. And we have Gary Hammond, the Project Manager, will give the project presentation followed by a question and answer period that I will help facilitate. The Q&A is specifically to answer any clarifying questions you may have of the presentation. After the Q&A period, we will begin the public comment session of the official record. All public comments will be responded to and included in the response to comment document, which will be uploaded to EnviroStar and sent to those providing their contact information. If you would like a copy of this document sent to you, please send your contact information to me via email at elsa.lopez@dtsc.ca.gov. And note if you would like to receive it by email or mail. Next slide. Again, I am Elsa Lopez. I am the DTSC Public Participation Specialist assigned to this project. I would also like to introduce to you all the panelists with the DTSC team. We have Gary Harmon, who is the project manager. He is the Senior Hazardous Substance Engineer. We have Ryan Batty, the DTSC Supervising Hazardous Substance Engineer and Hearing Officer. And we have Paulette Penton, who will translate if needed during the Q&A. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us this evening and amongst your many competing priorities. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide information about the draft Class 3 modification, and we will go on to more in-depth information as we go along. I will now turn it over to Ryan Batty. Next slide.
Thank you, Elsa. And good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Batty, and I'm a supervisor in the Permitting Division at DTSC. I will now present a series of slides that explain the hazardous waste facility permitting process. Next slide, please. So I'd like to set the foundation for who we are at DTSC and why we are here. Our mission at DTSC is to protect California's people, communities, and the environment from toxic substances. Our vision is to do everything we can under our authority so that all of California can thrive in a healthy environment. It's what drives our work and our decisions. Next slide, please. The Permitting Division at DTSC oversees permitted hazardous waste facilities in California that treat, store, or dispose of hazardous waste. Our overarching goal is to ensure that hazardous waste facilities operate safely and in a manner that is protective of human health and the environment. If a facility would like to treat, store, or dispose of hazardous waste, they must submit a permit application to DTSC for review and approval. The applications are not just a couple of pages or forms, but are usually volumes of binders with technical operating information. DTSC staff thoroughly reviews the application for conformance with laws, regulations, and standards applicable to hazardous waste management. Next slide, please. The permit application for a hazardous waste facility contains many elements that are designed to ensure that the facility can operate safely. Some examples of the contents of the permit application are waste analysis procedures, contingency plans, training materials, environmental monitoring work plans, and closure plans. The facility must have a closure plan and closure cost estimate, which is used to establish a financial assurance mechanism for closure. Financial assurance is important because it ensures that money is set aside in advance so that when the time comes, the facility is able to safely clean and close the facility. Next slide, please. When DTSC completes its technical review of the permit application, a draft permit decision is made. Because a permit decision is a discretionary decision, DTSC considers the environmental impacts that may result from the decision by following procedures mandated by the California Environmental Quality Act. A document called a statement of basis is prepared, which explains the decision that DTSC has reached. Next slide, please. The draft permit decision is then released for public review and comment. The public comment period must be a minimum of 45 days. In addition, a public meeting and hearing may be scheduled, such as the meeting we are at tonight. Next slide, please. And finally, once the public comment period ends, DTSC will take time to review and consider all comments received. Each person that submits comments will receive a written response to their comment. DTSC will take all comments received into account when it makes a final permit decision. The final permit decision can be to finalize the draft permit as proposed, finalize the draft permit with changes, or to deny the permit modification if good cause exists. Next slide, please. So once the final permit decision has been issued, it can be appealed any time during the 30 days following the decision. All appeals must be sent to DTSC's Board of Environmental Safety for their consideration. Instructions for filing an appeal will be contained in the Notice of Final Permit Decision. Thank you for allowing me to explain the permitting process. I will now hand it over to Gary Hammond to share information about the permit modification application submitted by DeMenno Kerdoon. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Ryan. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gary Hammond. I'm a senior engineer in the permitting division of the Department of Toxic Substances Control and the permitting project manager for the DeMenno Kerdoon facility. Next slide, please. Tonight, we will discuss the location of the DeMenno Kerdoon Compton site, the operations that are conducted on site. We will look at the history of DTSC's permits. We will talk about some of the modifications requested for approval and discuss the draft permit. The goal is to familiarize you with the requested modifications, also to the daily activities that are conducted at this site, as well as some of the protective measures that are in place to ensure that this facility operates in a safe and protective manner. Next slide. DeMenno Kerdoon, also known as World Oil, is located in Compton at 2000 North Alameda Street and occupies approximately 8 acres of property. The facility is surrounded by Alameda Street to the west, Pine Street to the north, Oak Street to the south, and other industrial businesses to the east. The facility is located 2.4 miles west of the Los Angeles River. The surrounding area where the facility is located is zoned for both industrial and residential uses. The industrial zone is located along Alameda Street, and the residential zone is located southeast of the facility. Next slide, please. The facility commenced operations in 1928 as Master Lubricants Company, a refiner of trucked crude oil, off-specification petroleum products, and refinery wastes. Master Lubricants produced products such as greases, soluble oils, quenching oil, and transform oil from crude oil, lubricant distillates, and petroleum stock, purchased from refineries, other producers, and brokers. DK, under its former name, DeMenno Petroleum Company, purchased the facility in 1974. The facility began recycling a wide variety of used oil in 1974. During the 1980s, the facility's recycling operation was upgraded to ensure its ongoing compliance with changing environmental regulations. Since July of 2001, the facility has been a fully permitted hazardous waste storage, treatment, recycling, and transfer facility. The renewed hazardous waste operating permit was issued on January 31st, 2017, and will expire on January 31st, 2027. In December of 2020, DeMenno Kerdoon applied for a permit modification to make changes to the current operating permit. We are here tonight to discuss the draft permit decision, which approved will allow DeMenno Kerdoon to make the changes that they requested. Next slide, please. DeMenno Kerdoon provides waste management services to a variety of industries that generate waste oils, waste oily water, and waste ethylene glycol. The operations that are conducted on the site at the facility include treatment, storage, and consolidation of many liquid and solid hazardous wastes. On this slide, we have some images displaying the various operations that are conducted on site. The facility is a hazardous waste storage, treatment, and transfer facility and used oil and glycol recycling facility and is not allowed to dispose of any waste on site. The hazardous waste accepted at the facility are received from sources such as spill cleanups, service stations, oil change businesses, community recycling, and used oil collection centers. Hazardous waste is accepted in containers or drums, such as 55-gallon drums and roll-off bins, or in bulk from tank trucks or vacuum trucks. Bulk hazardous waste received in tanker trucks or vacuum trucks are unloaded in designated unloading and loading areas referred to as racks. The facility mainly conducts storage and treatment of used oil, waste oil, oily water, and used antifreeze. Such treatment of used oil and waste oil includes phase separation, water removal, distillation, and treatment with use of chemicals, including for pH adjustments. During treatment, the facility generates wastewater, hazardous waste sludge and solids, and recycled oil products and recycled glycol products. Treated wastewater is discharged to the Los Angeles County Sanitation District in the publicly owned treatment works, the POTW. Hazardous waste solids are consolidated in roll-off bins or end-dump bins and stored at the container storage area for shipment to an authorized off-site disposal facility as hazardous waste. Next slide, please. Since 2014, DTSC has conducted 11 inspections at the site, including 10 reviews of the facility's financial responsibility. These inspections are unannounced. During the time frame over which the current permit has been effective, there have been 0 Class 1 violations, which is the most serious type of violation DTSC issues. As a result, the facility VSP score, which is a measure of their level of compliance, is 0, which means they're in the acceptable range for VSP. Next slide, please. Another consideration DTSC uses when reviewing the permit application is ensuring compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. CEQA reviews potential projects to see if there are any impacts on the environment as a result of completing this project. DTS filed an environmental impact report in September of 2000. For this permit modification, we have prepared an addendum to the original EIR. Both are available as part of the administrative record. DTSC has concluded that the proposed project will not create significant environmental effects not previously analyzed. Next slide, please. DeMenno Kerdoon currently has 17 different hazardous waste management units and is allowed to store 5.2 million gallons on site at any time. The purpose of this modification request was to provide proper plans for closure of some tanks, request removal of several tanks, including the 2.1 million gallon T55001 tank, and potentially contaminated soil from below the tank, modify some units, add 2 filter presses for better quality product, and add a new ethylene glycol purification unit. The new storage capacity will be only 3.9 million gallons, which is a 25% reduction of on-site storage. As part of the draft permit decision, the following proposed changes are proposed to be approved by DTSC. This future plot plan shows the facility and the new hazardous waste management units when all the modifications are complete. There's no change to the operating capacity of the facility, that is, how much material is received for processing. And there's no expected change to health risks associated with the facility and these changes. The following changes highlighted in yellow on this diagram were requested. All changes will need a certified professional engineer to review the installation and sign off that the changes were made according to the design plan submitted to DTSC for approval. The proposed changes are as follows and are highlighted in yellow. One is to replace the naphtha filled splitter column in Unit 8 with a taller column to improve the quality and allow better throughput through the unit. 2, add a filter press to Unit 12 to remove fine solids. 3, add 4 new 42,000 gallon tanks to Unit 1 to allow more storage of used glycol, waste oil, oily water, and asphalt flux. 5, add a new Unit 18 for more efficient glycol recovery. I skipped one. 3 was to add 4 new 42,000 gallon tanks to Unit 12, and 4 was to add 4 new 42,000 gallon tanks to Unit 1. Number 5 was to add a new Unit 18 for more efficient glycol recovery. 6, add a filter press in Unit 3 for ethylene glycol for removal of fine solids. 7 is to modify the dehydration column in Unit 9 for improved product quality. And 8, remove several tanks, including the large 55001 and associated potentially contaminated soil. Again, they're removing 2.3 million gallons of storage from T55001 and basically replacing it with 8 new 42,000 gallon tanks, reducing the total on-site storage significantly by 25%. These changes will allow better quality of products produced by the facility recycled from state hazardous waste oil and ethylene glycol, and again will provide a 25% reduction in on-site storage capacity. Next slide, please. This is the same slide in Spanish. We can come back to the slide if somebody wants to come back to this slide and read them all. Next slide, please. Now that we've discussed the background of the facility, as well as some of the main components of the permit modification and draft permit, we can discuss the next steps from here. We are in the public comment period. Our goal is to gather comments and feedback from the public to inform our decision. When the comment period ends on March 17th, DTSC will review all the comments that are received and prepare a response to comments document. When the comment period ends and response to comments document is issued, a permit decision will be made. Next slide, please. When a permit decision is made, DTSC can either issue the permit as proposed, issue the permit with modifications, or deny the permit changes for good cause. Again, a permit decision has not been made. A permit decision will be made after the comment period. This concludes my portion of the presentation. I appreciate you giving me the time to share some information regarding this facility, the permit application, a modification application, and draft permit. I will now hand it back off to Elsa Lopez, who will go over some of our public outreach activities and then prepare us for the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. My contact information will be shared again in this presentation. Please feel free to contact me with any questions you may have regarding this facility or review of their permit application. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Gary. In the next few slides, I will present an overview of DTSC's public participation activities, including the information related to this public outreach activities conducted during our review of this permit application and how you can provide official public comment. Our goal is to hear from you and receive comments you may have regarding this project. Next slide. The purpose of DTSC's public participation process is to provide communities an opportunity to actively participate in our decision-making process and encourage a two-way communication between you and DTSC. This approach allows for dialogue so that you and your concerns and priorities are considered in our regulatory activities. We recognize that meaningful public involvement ultimately results in better environmental risk management decisions. For this project, a request for the permit modification was received on December 14th of 2020. A community survey to over 1,000 residents and businesses and over 30 emailed community surveys were done on June 14th of 2024. Public comment periods, 60-day, started January 15th and will end on March 17th. We are now at the public hearing, and a response to comments document will be drafted. Today we are holding the public hearing to collect official public comments. After the 48-day comment period closes, we will review all the comments received and we will issue a response to comment document. Next slide. All information on this project has been located at the Compton Library at 240 West Compton Boulevard in Compton, California. You could call them to reserve a spot to see it or for their hours. We also have it at our Chatsworth office at the DTSC file room. You will need to call to get an appointment to be able to see the documents there. We also have them up in Sacramento, and you could also call there for an appointment. Next slide. You can easily find them on the internet also at our EnviroStore link, and that is at enviroStore.dtsc.ca.gov/public, and you will go and look under or search for DeMenno Kerdoon. The links are on our chat so that you could go directly to it. Next slide. I would like to remind you one last time that we are in the comment period. If you would like to make a comment, please call, email, or mail your comment to Gary Hammond from the Department of Toxic Substances Control. His contact information is here, and we will leave it up for a while. As a reminder, we will be taking public comments after the Q&A session. Please hold all comments for the official comment period or comment so we could record them. Right now, we will be going into our Q&A. So if you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand and we will call you to the queue. Or you could type in your question at the Q&A portion of this. We will begin by taking some of the questions entered in the Q&A during this presentation. We have one from Dean Jones. The City of Compton Council member Lily P. Darden is prepared to make public comment on the application. Would you like to write your comment in, or would you like to voice it? That would be during the hearing. Not hearing back. You would like to voice it. So then, do you have a question, or do you want to do an official comment? Okay. I don't have any raised hands at this time. So we will, we have one. Cindy, you are allowed to speak. You could unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. My name's Cindy, pronoun she, her, organizer and community member with East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice. I also wanted to share that I'm not alone. I'm taking this remotely with a group of other concerned community members. We're gathered here at the Long Beach office to hear and see the presentation. I have a few questions, and I believe there's a couple of other folks who may have a few questions as well that are here. So I can start with mine. And then I don't know if you would want to hear all the questions and then respond, or one by one. How would you want to do this?
Gary, Ryan, how would you like them to do it?
One by one, we've asked.
Okay, that way there's no confusion. That would be good.
So, and to further clarify, question by question or person by person? I have a couple of questions, that's why.
Question by question, if we would.
Okay, cool. The first question was, I'm trying to understand the violation scoring procedure, the VSP. Can you expand on how that's calculated? A connected question is if that scoring process considers violations that other government entities like the Air Quality Management District or the Environmental Protection Agency have also placed as well, or if it's only within DTSC.
Yes, VSP is a whole other large ball of wax to explain, but in brief, it's basically a measure of the facility's compliance with the environmental laws. What VSP does is our enforcement people go out and inspect the facility at least annually, sometimes more often than annually, and they look for violations and write them up for violations. This facility has received no Class 1 violations in the last 10 years, and they score the Class 1 violations based on the extent of the violation and the harm, the potential harm to the human health and the environment. And so their VSP score, facility VSP score of 0 indicates again that they've had no Class 1 violations in 10 years. And so they are at the lowest score that they can be for violations. VSP does not score violations from other agencies. But if another agency has a referral, then DTSC enforcement can go out and review the same problem. And if it's a violation of DTSC rules and regulations, then they can score it at that point when they see it.
Okay, so then to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, it's only like the Class 1 violations that DTSC is overseeing that would be used in the calculation?
That's right.
What about other class violations within?
And no other class violations are considered.
As part of the VSP.
Thank you for clarifying that. The other question that I had was around the output, how being framed like that. There's a 25% reduction because of the new equipment, but I'm wondering if this new equipment has a bigger capacity on its own already. I don't know if that's clear enough. I guess because they can technically process 25% less. However, can they process that quicker at all? This is not my field of expertise in terms of the equipment and the engineering that happens there. I'm just very skeptical about this facility really not trying to increase their output.
Yeah, at this point, these changes will not change their amount of material received or their output, but the changes are to reduce the storage on site. So it's not going to change how much they receive or how much they ship out, how much the finished product is, but they will make better product and a cleaner product that meets their market demands, and also getting rid of the large T5001 reduces the amount of storage on site. So it doesn't affect their input or output capacity, but reduces the amount of storage on site by 25%.
Okay, thank you. As a follow-up on that, is the input and output capacity something that DTSC monitors, and are there regulations around that, or does that not exist?
It's in the permit. The amount that they're allowed to receive and process is in the permit and in the application. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head for this meeting right now.
Okay, and that's something that they would have to be complying with, so there's enforcement?
Yes, if they exceed their output, there is enforcement on that. And even their capacity in certain individual units, they have limits on.
Okay, I'm gonna pass the mic to someone else so that you can hear from other voices. Thank you so much.
The 17th though? Okay. Hello.
Hi. Can you state your name?
Yeah, my name is Caitlin. I'm a high school student from Centennial High School in Compton.
Okay.
I was wondering what was up with the deadline change for public hearing comments. Because in the PDF that we can see, it says March 28th, whereas in the presentation that was just shown, the deadline was changed to the 17th. Why was it changed to a shorter time? I was just wondering about that because like you guys have previously mentioned, you guys are recording the audio, but for people who do want it sent through mail, it would take a little longer. And it's not very fair for people who would like that option.
As long as it's postmarked by March 17th, we accept them. The mail could get it to us 3 to 5 days later. We're still going to accept them.
Okay. But the main question was, why was it reduced to March 17th?
So March 28th, I can see. Where did you see the
Where did you see March 28th?
It was in a PDF that was sent. Yeah, it was sent. Yeah, it was sent. It was the notification that was given.
I don't know which one it is.
I could put it in the
chat. March 28th was
we could try to
a date considered.
Oh.
It's 60 days. What we have?
That's weird. What happened?
Yeah.
Okay. So then my next question was, could you guys really actually guarantee that there are no health risks to the proposal, because earlier it was stated as well that there was going to be no signs of health risks, but with the field that you guys are working in, what you guys are handling, there is already an increased risk, especially for people in my community. So I was wondering, how are you guys going to ensure that and make that claim if it's not 100% backed up?
Can't give 100% backup that there is no health risk associated. Both DTSC and other agencies regulate this facility to the best of their abilities. They do have a Title V air permit, which looks at, and that's from the Air Board, which looks at all the health risks. And DTSC generally goes by when they do the Title V, by their health risk assessment. And we also have a list of regulations. Title 22 is a list of all the regulations the facilities must abide by to minimize health risks. And they meet all of those requirements that are in Title 22.
Okay.
It's not
Okay.
it's not a guarantee, but it's the best that we can regulate and the rules that they have to follow, and they are following those rules. And that's indicated by their no Class 1 violations in 10 years also.
Okay. And then my last question, before you guys hear from somebody else, I was just wondering, how would the modifications and what you guys are planning to do affect daily life for people who live in these communities? Because I'm not really sure, again, with the equipment and what's really how you guys are going to transport, how you guys are going to move, get rid of certain equipment, or I don't know if you guys are trying to get rid of certain equipment. How would that process look like? And would that affect any roads? Would that affect daily life for anybody? Because that could really also affect other people, which does play into the health factor of everything.
You're asking about the construction. As far as the operating, it will not change the day-to-day operations from a physical standpoint because it's the same input and output and throughput. For the construction, the large T55001 tank will need to be demolished. I think the closure plan included taking appropriate procedures to minimize dust and there is also a soil cleanup to clean up the soil below that tank to make sure that the any risks associated with that soil that may be contaminated will be cleaned up. And again, that may be some problems, but they will certainly take the best precautions available to mitigate any offsite consequences.
Hi, my name is Andrea Luna. I'm a member with ESHAR Communities for Environmental Justice. I also serve as their policy analyst. I had a couple of questions. I do plan to review the presentation again because it went a little quicker than I could grasp and process. I kind of want to go back to the question on the 25 reduction. I'm a little confused, or I'm not understanding why there's a 25 reduction if there's new tanks being proposed on site. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, let's go to slide. Can we show slide number 21? Actually, slide 20. Well, 21 will be a good one to start if we could. There we go. Slide 55, tank 5501. It's on the right side, about 2/3 of the way up. It's the really, really big tank. I'm sorry I can't point at it on my screen. It is a 2.3 million gallon tank, and they're going to remove that tank as part of this mod and remove the soil from underneath it. So look at this slide, and now go to the next slide, please. And you can see that on the in the big area on the right side or in the middle of the screen, that big tank is gone. And you can see they're getting rid of the 2.3 million gallon tank, and they're going to add in 4 42,000 gallon tanks. and 4 more 42,000 gallon tanks, basically not to replace that operation directly, but it'll reduce the capacity of storage on the site by what is that? Nearly 1.5 million gallons, I believe, reduction. What's the actual reduction? Let me think about it again. It'll give it 25%, so 2.3 million gallons minus the 300,000 gallons, so it's almost a 2 million gallon reduction of storage on site by getting rid of that large tank.
Okay, that makes so much sense. Thank you. My second question is, how is glyco being monitored? Is there like fence line? How are we monitoring how could essentially go in the air, soil, and water? Because you're mentioning contaminated soil, how they're gonna remove this tank. One is like, what's the cleanup process? And the second one is, how are we monitoring how glyco is entering our environment that could potentially have health risk associated?
There is a large contamination under the site that DTSC is working on cleanup and decontamination of the whole large cleanup. Most of that is from historical. This has been an operating oil refinery since 1920 something. And so there's a large plume that they're working on and working with. But during the construction, digging up that soil under the old 5501, under that giant tank, they have committed to, as part of the renewal or as part of the modification, to digging up 5 feet of soil underneath that tank and then testing under that tank to check for further soil and or to further contamination. And if there's further contamination, they will continue to chase that until either DTSC deems it safe or it's all cleaned up. Now, as far as, if something gets airborne, they're trying to prevent it from being airborne. One of the typical things that companies do is they will use water sprays and keep the soil wet and so that nothing can get airborne for the most part. Great questions, you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you mentioned, thank you for that. You mentioned a large plume. Are you talking a contaminated soil? Are you mentioning, is that in reference to the large tank you were mentioning?
It's not directly to the large tank. We're not sure what the condition of the soil is under the large tank, but they have committed to digging up 5 feet of the soil and bringing in new soil to replace that soil as part of that large tank. But there's a large plume just from the historical activities at the site, and it's talked about in the permit a little bit. But it's a different part of DTSC that does it. But there is site mitigation, is what we call it, going on all the time. They are basically sucking up the gases that are in the soil and pulling them into their process, trying to clean up the soils and the vapors that are in the soil, and also filtering and testing the groundwater. And doing a pump and treat on the groundwater, trying to clean up the groundwater around them also. And I'm sorry, I'm not super familiar with the site mitigation stuff, but there is lots of activities trying to clean up the site.
Yeah, is that going to be available for the public to follow how the cleanup process is going to look like?
That's always on EnviroStore. I think EnviroStore, you go to the DeMenno Kerdoon site and you look up the cleanup process, and there's lots of information on there. My understanding is they just did recently come up with or develop a new corrective action plan and have received or working on the financial assurance for how to implement that corrective action plan. They've been testing for about the last 10 years different ways to mitigate and to clean up, and they just have come to the remediation plan recently. But it should be on the website.
I'll look at that after the meeting. The other question I had was the monitoring. So because they're recycling ethylene glycol, how we seeing if that's coming into the air is my question. Because in the ethylene glycol absorbs twice as much as its weight. So I know that for water, but for the air, I know that it's odorless, it's tasteless. Well, it has like a sweet taste. But I'm wondering how we monitoring that. Like, how can folks, residents that live nearby, the workers in the facility, how do they know if they're being exposed to glycol? Is there equipment available to monitor that?
Not to monitor the glycol itself. Every tank on the site is hooked up to a thermal oxidizer and a sock scrubber that then it pulls in all the vapors from all the tanks and then runs them through the vapor incinerator system. That's primarily overseen or regulated by the Air Quality Management District, but we have our regulations require that for certain products that they do have to be brought into a thermal oxidizer, and that thermal oxidizer has to be maintained. So we work in conjunction with the Air Quality Management District to make sure that those units are operating and that everything is getting pulled into, all the vapors are getting pulled into those the thermal oxidizer to burn up those gases. Glycol itself has very little vapor pressure. It's a large molecule that doesn't have much vapor pressure, so you can't smell it much, and that's the reason you can't smell it much, is because there's not much evaporating into the air. But it is, what little bit is that's evaporated, it goes through this vapor incinerator system. All tanks, and by DTSC requirements, all tanks have to have special conservation vents, and that are then vented to the thermal oxidizer system.
Thank you. Another question, as we're talking, just questions are coming up, so I appreciate your answers to my responses. When they're recycling antifreeze, you mentioned earlier that other materials don't get recycled here. So like antifreeze could potentially have other hazardous materials involved in it. I'm wondering, because it's not recycled there, how's that getting processed? Is that the process of removing like lead, cadmium, or like other heavy metals in antifreeze? Is there a procedure that the facility is following? And is that being monitored by DTSC?
Processes are monitored by DTSC. I'm not aware of that they need to remove the lead and cadmium and other heavy metals from the glycol to resell it as glycol. It might be that it's not, it's just such low concentration that it's not a concern. And I may be wrong on that, and I can dig into that question and answer it for you later, if you'd like.
Yes, I would appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm done. Thank you. I'm gonna pass it to someone else.
Hello, good evening. This is Nathan with East Africa Communities for Environmental Justice. I was curious about the survey that was done last year on June 14th. What were the questions in that survey, and what were the results of it? And if it's possible to see those results, or we can find those somewhere.
I believe the results were put in the EnviroStar. We didn't get too many responses for it. I believe we had like 6 or 7 responses total. Most of them were what our survey usually is when we first go out, we want to know how the residents and the businesses would like to receive the information on the project or any activities that are happening on this project. So the survey actually serves for both permitting and for the cleanup. So when the survey went out, we normally asked like what language they would prefer their communication in, how they would like to be communicated to, if they want evening meetings, if they want in-person meetings, just the typical kind of questions. When it went out, we didn't get too many return as much as I thought we were going to get. I went out in the community. We usually do line of sight, visit some of the homes, visit businesses. We got good feedback from them, telling us that they didn't have issues with the company. at that time, and that they were willing to participate in a meeting if we held one. So that's mainly what the survey is. We also put if they could list any concerns they may have. Not too many were listed. One was that they had smelled something, but were not sure if it was coming from there. Another one said that, let me see, hold on. Another one also said that if there had ever been any accidents, if we could let them know. We didn't know of any, so I let them know that. But that was it. We got kind of positive feedback from the city itself and some of the schools in the area. But that was it. That's normally what our surveys are about.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I have a different question. I appreciate the answer.
Okay.
Y'all stated that the wastewater is sent to the LA County Sanitation District. I was curious what that process looks like and like how that process looks like.
That's not done by DTSC, correct?
With that?
That's not overseen by DTSC. Is that overseen by the water board?
It is a permitted unit. And it's the permit, because it substantially gets hazardous waste into those tanks. Occasionally, if they don't treat it enough before they ship it off site, the water has to be tested to make sure it meets the POTW standards, and it's permitted by the PTO. The discharge itself is permitted by the Los Angeles County POTW. But if it doesn't meet those specifications or still has indications of a little bit of hazardous waste in it, then they recycle it and reprocess it back into those same tanks. And I can't remember what that process is. It's not part of the mod. But it is, I think, some filtering, a little bit of water treatment with to get the heavy metals out, and then stick it in the tanks and testing it and then discharging.
All right, thank you so much. That's it for myself.
Yeah, let me circle back real quick. We did check. We had somebody check our documents, and we did put in the flyer that was March 28th, and so we'll extend the date to March 28th for our public comment period, because that is what we posted previously. So we're miscommunicating this presentation.
Thank you. That concludes our line of questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Next.
Cindy? I didn't catch the name of the person who was asking.
Me? The first person that spoke?
No.
Adriana or
Andrea.
Yeah.
Andrea. Oh, to reach out to her?
Yeah. Can she send me an email with the question again, and then I'll do a little research on it and reply to it?
Yeah,
yes, to Gary Hammond.
Yep, Gary.Hammond@dtsc.ca.gov.
Okay. And if you could put her contact information in the Q&A, because we don't have it registered. Okay, we'll go on to the next person. We have Paola de la Cruz Perez.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. And hi to my friends from East Yard and all the youth that are calling in. My name is Paola, and I'm a Compton member with East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice. I live really close to the facility and grew up as a teen, like very vividly remembering that like oily water and tar smell. And as an adult through East Yard, really learning about the different agencies that are responsible for monitoring this facility and regulating really and building my skill set to report. I like consistently see these tanker trucks as they're like arriving to the facility, like on and off the freeway, down Rosecrans, especially coming from like the 710. So yeah, this is all really important to me. I participated in these conversations with East Yard members, youth as well, back when the company was initially making this request in the fall of 2022 or 2020, excuse me, if I remember correctly. And I think something that's really important that's missing from this presentation is that we as community members who live in Compton were the ones who actually pushed the department to properly classify the company's request to a class 3. They were requesting a class 2, and we didn't think that they had done meaningful community outreach, and we had lots of questions and concerns. So we really appreciate DTSC staff thinking through our concerns and classifying this as class 3. But I do want to note that it was our advocacy and our resistance that led to that and led to us being here. I also want to note that this company cares about their profits. They do not care about Compton or community members in the adjacent areas or our health. Their activities have a significant impact to the environment and to the people. And I think that it's really important for us to continue to remember that, unfortunately, there are limitations to what agencies like DTSC can do because you're basically following laws that just dictate how much they can pollute us. And if there are any local elected officials in this call, I encourage you to really take this and to analyze what I'm saying and what other community members have shared, specifically our young people who are, again, Compton residents themselves, because this facility just doesn't care about our health. And for too long, they have, I think, been buddies with the city and with other agencies because of their corporate interests. So just wanted to note that as context. And I have 5 questions. The first...
If you would restate that in the public comment period during the hearing, and then we'll be able to give a response to comments on that. You didn't ask any questions in that, and we'd be glad to listen to the comments and make them part of the public record as part of our hearing later. So feel free to restate those in the public hearing part.
Yeah, thank you, Gary, for adding that. I will absolutely submit a written comment. So thank you for that. And I think if it's okay with you, if I still ask my questions.
Please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it is helpful to kind of get a response from you all right now. The first one is about the health risk assessment. I am wondering if the company has been ordered to do this, particularly because I saw that you all added an amendment or an addendum to the final EIR. So yeah, just curious to know any details about the health risk assessment. This is also something we asked for back in 2020.
If you see... has a regulation that for certain facilities, any facility that's under the class, that's under Title V air permits, which this facility is, must provide a health risk assessment. And the reason they provide that health risk assessment is because we know that if they're part of the Title V air permit problems, then they have to create one for the air district. And so we'd like to take a look at it too to see what the associated health risks from that health risk assessment say.
I see. So are you talking about the one from 2001?
No.
Oh, okay. So there isn't a new one.
There is, well, every time they do a permit application for the air permits, they have to provide a health risk assessment with that. And that is a very elaborate, it shows all their stack testing and their, like on the boilers and all their units on site. And that is part of that is included in the application and in this renewal, or I mean, in this modification application.
Gary, is it possible for you all to drop a link to us for that? I have been navigating EnviroStore for a few years myself, and I haven't been able to find this link that you're talking about. So I want it for myself and also for other folks who are on the call. I think that would be really helpful. Thank you.
The link to the health risk assessment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it is in the application. I could probably, what I'd have to do is point to it in what part of the application it is, and maybe the page number on that PDF, because the application is so huge, it's broken into multiple pieces in EnviroStore because it can't upload anything that big. But I'll try and direct you to that. You can also find it in their air permits if you were looking at the air permits.
Okay. Yeah, that would be really helpful. I would really appreciate that. Thank you. They are very lengthy documents. My second question. Towards the end of your presentation, you mentioned that the final decision includes this consideration of good cause, denying the permit request based on good cause. Can you explain what that means? Oh, hello?
Yeah, I heard. Ryan, do you want to help me with that one?
Sure, I can help that. Yeah, so it essentially means that we this business, they're trying to make changes to improve their operation. So especially when they're as Gary mentioned, they're replacing older equipment with new equipment and reducing their on-site storage capacity. So those are generally positive things. Like we if they're going to be storing hazardous materials on site, we want modern equipment and modern tanks because that's more protective than say older equipment. So when we talk about good cause, what we really mean is that we would have to have some reasoning. Like if they want to replace an older tank with smaller, newer tanks, that because that's generally a good thing, we would have to have some reasoning for if we were going to deny that request, we'd have to explain why we reached that decision. So that's essentially what good cause means, is that we just have to have some basis for the decisions that we make. So that's really what it was referring to.
Yeah, thank you for that, Brian. Is there a policy that you can point us as community members to learn more about good cause?
Not sure that we have a policy per se, but we, when we get a permit modification request, part of our job is to look at the regulations and look at the request and try to make an evaluation whether the request conforms with the regulations. And we talked about the CEQA process. Are there going to be any significant impacts? Because that would be a scenario, say a different project, a different facility, say someone had proposed a modification and we went through the CEQA process and we determined that, say, there was some environmental impacts that couldn't be mitigated. That might be a scenario where we would say, well, there's good cause for denying because we're showing an impact that we can't alleviate or reduce. So that would be a scenario where good cause may come into play. But in this case, because of the nature of the changes that they wanted to make, there's really because there's a reduction in capacity, storage capacity, and because they're replacing older tanks and infrastructure with newer equipment, generally those are reduce risks and make for a safer operation. So we when we went through the CEQA process, we didn't find that there were new impacts that would would create more of a problem than what was there previously. So those are some of the considerations that we go through. Like Gary said, there's a lot of these applications there's a lot of information in there. And, it takes a lot of time to go through and understand what's proposed. And, in this case, we felt that the changes that they had proposed, made sense. I mean, I think it's generally a good thing that they want to, replace, older tanks with newer tanks. That's something that I think we want to encourage as a department, because newer tanks are, built to current modern standards and are more protective than older designs. So those are some of the considerations that we think about.
Yeah, thank you for explaining the considerations that go into that decision, even though there isn't the kind of clear policy, but I appreciate it, Ryan.
Sure.
I have the third question that I listed here, and this is really picking back on questions that were mentioned earlier by community members about other environmental agencies like AQMD and LA County Sanitation District. So, like in your presentation, you mentioned, right, that the facility has this permit from the county to release into like to release like the discharge into like their pipes and because I live super close, I know that this is like in the kind of Oak Street area, like it exits on Alameda, gets real stinky. Again, because I've lived there, I've called the 1-800-CUT-SMOG number from AQND so many times, and so have youth that I know and residents from my neighborhood. And there's different follow-up that we have made with like those respective agencies. And so I know that it isn't considered in the kind of criteria that was mentioned at the beginning, but I do really encourage, and I will write this down in writing and submit to you all as my comment, but I want the department to consider those violations. In 2020, our community like really did a lot of research to unearth some of those, like including federal EPA violations, because the company wasn't properly like testing some of their water discharge and then holding more liquids than they were authorized to. So I guess my specific question is, are you all requesting the public comment of AQMD and the LA County Sanitation Districts?
This mod, we talked to the Air Quality Management District. They didn't have any concerns. And the full process for DeMenno Kerdoon is going to be to first get approval from us to do these changes. Then they've got to go to the fire department and the air district and other agencies to make sure that they agree or that they're okay through them. And if those other agencies see issues with these changes, then that'll make some changes to it again, potentially. So that's the whole process. For the renewal that's coming up, I mentioned that their permit expires in a few years, and they'll be working on a renewal. We will have a little more contact with the air districts, and because there's environmental screen score, or not the environmental, the VSP score is 0, because they've had no Class 1 violations, we are not required necessarily to look at the other agencies' the record, including OSHA and other things. But yes, those would be good things to look at, and we will consider that.
Thanks for saying that, Gary. And so just to clarify then, this kind of process of all of this agencies and fire department that you mentioned, so at the end of all of that is when DTSC will make its decision?
No. DTSC is trying to make the decision now based on your input, and then once we say it's okay, then they'll go to the other agencies to decide if it's okay with the other agencies also. it felt like the first step was coming to DTSC to make sure that we would approve it first of all for the hazardous waste management, and then the other steps are the other agencies still too.
Okay, that's clear to me now. Thank you, Gary, for that. Okay, I will try to be brief with these last two questions, in case others have questions. So my fourth question is around mitigation. I have a lot of concerns because of the years of harm that the land there has experienced, right? You all know and are very familiar with all the different operations that happened around oil refining, and now the recycling that happens there. And so in removing like these tanks, I want to know what are some of the mitigation measures that are being considered in the plan? Like, is there any air monitoring that's included? Any like fugitive dust control? Any notification system of like local residents? Any signs that are going to be put up outside that say like, hey, if you see anything, you can call here?
We haven't required it yet, but those are good suggestions.
Okay, and I will include them in my public
And
comment.
it didn't include the plans for closing out the large tank did not specify that kind of detail. We kind of, there's certain industrial practices that they'll follow,
Okay.
but maybe some of those are included in the standard industrial practices also.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that's helpful. And then my last question is a more technical one. So what is this called? The splitter column. You had this on a slide of like the different changes that are happening. I
22, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gary. I didn't hear that. Can you say that again?
I'm asking my team to move to the slide 22.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Go ahead with your question.
Okay, so it's the replacement of the naphtha, the splitter column, tank C501, I think. So I've in kind of reading through some of the documents, a concern that I have, and I want to see if I think through the presentation I'm learning like my concern is not true, but I just want to get confirmation from you. I was concerned that that tank specifically, that the replacement would increase the throughput capacity from 10 gallons per minute to 15 gallons per minute. And so I know that that's like a technological improvement. I understand like if the technology has positive health benefits for residents, but like this to me specifically signals increase in throughput capacity. And so I'm concerned about that because I know that the facility has like 100% vapor recovery system, but the liquids that are captured and burned, like that still has emissions. And I know that in the past it was around like 3%, and that specifically has like 24/7 monitoring. So I'm just trying to like connect the points here. I know that the air quality management district is really in charge of that, but I'm like, okay, tank capacity, what does that mean for then air emissions?
They're planning on putting in a larger naphtha column. It's basically going to split the products a little better, give them a cleaner, more pure product at the very top of the column. And it is going to increase our capacity a little bit for that unit. It's not going to change the entire capacity for the whole facility. They're not going to be allowed to take in any more material than they currently do, or produce any more material than they currently do, but it will allow them to purify and get that step going a little quicker for their process. So that's how we're saying it. I mean, that's how the rationale is. It's not increased capacity for the whole unit. Now, as far as absorbing the product, that is basically a closed loop process. I'm not sure quite how to describe it. It basically boils a product and then it drips back down into liquid, and it has some emergency relief valves on it that are not supposed to be ever triggered or used. But if those emergency relief valves are triggered, then they go to the thermal oxidizer. But for the most part, that naphtha column is a closed loop. It vaporizes some of the product, then recondenses it and makes it all drop down and turn back into liquid so that there's no vapor theoretically going to the thermal oxidizer from that unit.
Thank you, Gary. I'm going to think about this some more. But again, I appreciate you all answering all of my questions and the questions from other community members. And thank you for also offering to share your emails and allow us to follow up.
Thank you, Paola. We'll go to our last question with Betty before we head off to a 5-minute break and start with the hearing.
Hi.
Hi.
My information is more comment. Is this appropriate now or to wait?
The comments will be in the next session.
Okay.
So put your hand up again, and then we'll call you when we get to that section.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now we will go in a 5-minute break. So we'll come back at 7:27, and we'll start with the hearing. Okay, we are now ready for our public hearing. We will now begin the public comment session of the meeting. The format will be similar to the Q&A we just had. However, DTSC will provide written responses at a later date only. We will not be answering any questions at this time. Next slide. All public comments will be responded to and included in the response to comments document, which will be uploaded to Envirostar and sent to those providing their contact information. Again, if you would like a copy of this document sent to you, please send your contact information to me via email, or you can put your contact information in the Q&A also. My email is elsa.lopez@dtsc.ca.gov. And note, if you would like to receive it by email or mail. I will now turn it over to our hearing officer, Ryan Batty, to open the public hearing. Next slide.
Thank you, Elsa. And hello again, everyone. Again, my name's Ryan Batty, and I'm going to be the hearing officer for the hearing portion of today's meeting. So the public hearing is the formal part of the meeting where comments are received for the record. So if you make a comment during this portion of the meeting, DTSC will make a record of those comments and we'll provide a written response at a later date. So the DTSC has made a tentative decision to grant the hazardous waste facility permit modification for DeMenno, Kerdoon. So the purpose of the hearing is to provide the public the opportunity to present oral or written comments on the department's decision. So this hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of California Health and Safety Code, Section 25200, and California Code of Regulations, Title 22, Section 66271.11. So as we mentioned previously, once the final permit decision is made, an announcement of the decision will be mailed to everyone on the facility mailing list. Everyone who commented during the public comment period and provided their contact information will receive written response to their comments. A copy of the response to comments document will also be placed into the administrative record for the final decision and will be available on Envirostar. So once the final decision is made, the decision can be appealed if anyone that made comments on the decision or if there was any significant changes made in response to the comments. So anyone who filed comments on the draft decision or who participated in the hearing can choose to appeal the final decision. So the appeal must be filed with DTSC's Board of Environmental Safety within 30 days of the date of the final decision. And further details about the appeal process will be included in the notice of final permit decision. So I'm now officially opening the public hearing, and I'm going to turn it back to Elsa to help facilitate the process of entering comments into the record. Elsa?
Okay. Thank you. Okay, these comments are going to be verbalized. So I'm going to go down the list of those who have their hand up, and we'll start with Betty.
Thank you, Elsa. I am Betty Randall. I represent Champions of Karen Connections. We're located in Compton at 1019 North Harris. And I do want to thank Gary for his explanation of the process because it was very informative and it was helpful in terms of the concerns from some of those questions regarding the environment and safety. The role that Champions of Caring Connections has with World Oil, we've been partnering with them since 2010 as a community participant. And they have been dedicated as a partner with our organization by actively participating in our annual Share for a Cause holiday event, which is held for those families and children who are unhoused or at risk of being homeless. They also physically have shown up on several of those events. But in listening to all of the information provided regarding the safety and what the asset and improvement would be, is that I believe that this proposed permit modification would significantly improve the environmental protection, which would contribute to a healthy city by reducing the hazardous waste and, of course, all of the concerns of safety with the different tank improvements. Thank you for the opportunity to share this information.
Thank you, Betty. We will now go to Dean Jones.
Thank you very much. I'm the liaison for Councilwoman Lily P. Darden for the City of Compton. She represents District 4. She sends her regrets she had to make another commitment. She was in on the meeting. We're located here in City Hall at 205 South Willowbrook in the City of Compton. We've sent in letters of support for this project, mainly because this is a 100-year-old facility and it needs constant updates. And we're delighted that Kerdoon World Oil has decided to put together an environmental update, particularly because it's reducing the on-site storage, which is probably one of the more dangerous things when you store chemicals, and that goes for a small amount to large amounts. So the 25% reduction is fantastic. We'd like to augment our written comments that we've already submitted to Mr. Hammond based on some of the community input, particularly what Ms. Dela Cruz, one of the residents that live near the facility. We would like to ask that it be a requirement when the construction or the approval, I should say, of this project is completed, that there be an online announcement sent to our city website that we can post for real-time updates, in addition to the other suggestion that door hangers be placed so that the residents fully understand the length of time or any disruption of the construction. Other than that, we're delighted to have World Oil as our community partner. As indicated by Ms. Randall, there are many organizations that DeMenno Kerdoon World Oil has done with our community residents and nonprofit groups with scholarship opportunities. As a matter of fact, they have hired scientists that have graduated from some of our local schools, and it's a very good corporate citizen that they have been providing. The city does benefit somewhat for any corporation that's operating for our revenue stream, but the quality of life has improved considerably by their participation. And I don't want the residents to think that the city doesn't ensure that the agencies responsible for overseeing the quality of their output is not reviewed. So we do make sure that it is reviewed through CEQA, AQMD, et cetera. So again, thank you for the opportunity. Again, Councilwoman Darden sends her regrets that she couldn't stay to the comment section, but we fully support this Mod 3 application. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Now we'll have Sue Garnick.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Sue Gornick. I'm Vice President of Environment, Health, and Safety for World Oil Recycling. We appreciate the opportunity to provide comments regarding our Class 3 hazardous waste permit modification. After working on this permit with DTSC since 2020 to make sure that a robust technical and environmental review is completed, we are looking forward to implementing the changes that will substantially improve the efficiency of how we treat waste at our facility. Although there will be no reduction in the amount of valuable resources we are able to recover from the material we recycle, we will remove the largest tank on site that is permitted to hold 2.3 million gallons and install new tankage that only holds 340,000 gallons of material. This is almost an 87% reduction of material that is on site. Of course, that was called out by both DTSC and Mr. Dean Jones, so we appreciate that. So I want to note, I guess, a few of the people that are our employees and also Compton residents that are submitting letters too. They weren't able to be here tonight. So we have Margarita Salgado, who's been with us for 23 years, Amy Chavez for just 3 years, Francisco Custodio Rodriguez for 36 years, Marcelino Parra, 37 years, who's also a 36-year resident of Compton. Juan Zambrano, 3 years employee, and Estela Marin in 5 years. And she'd been living in Compton for 15 years before she came to work for us. And then, of course, the following community leaders are submitting letters of support. You already heard from Dean Jones and from Betty Randall, but we also have letters from Joy Langford, who's the Director of Division 1, the Water Replenishment District, from Mike Gibson, Assembly Member, State of California. You heard Lily Darden will be submitting a letter from District 4, City of Compton, from our Mayor, Emma Sharif, City of Compton, Stuart Farber, Board Member for Compton Youth Activities League, Jorge Torres, the Senior Director, College and Career Readiness, Compton Unified, and from our former Mayor of Compton, Aja Brown. So I really appreciate your time going into all the details of our project and appreciate all the work that we've done over the past few years to bring this project to fruition. We're really looking forward to it. And, I encourage DTSC to approve our permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Now we'll go to our last comment with Stuart Farber.
Hello, thank you. This is Stuart Farber. I am the co-founder and board chair for the Friends of the Compton Youth Activities League. We're neighbors of World Oil, just down the street. We have anywhere from 40 to 100 kids on site, given time of year and date. And we provide academic support, and then we also have programs that range from programming and coding to music to cricket and rugby. And I appreciate this opportunity to speak up for World Oil because they are just great neighbors and friends of our organization. I enjoy seeing them at the quarterly business roundtables, and I really appreciate their help. That we're looking to up our STEAM program, and in the summer we're going to bring kids over to see the science and what World Oil does, and hopefully have them come back in and we can work a course with them. Some things that I learned tonight that I'm also very appreciative is having less waste on site. That's very comforting to know. I mean, they do a very important job, and then having the less waste is on site is great. And also that they are retrofitting and putting in new equipment. So I can't pretend to say that I understand what they do or how they do it, but they are terrific neighbors. They're doing a terrific service to the community, and I very much encourage the passing of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. It looks like we have one more hand up, Paola.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I spoke earlier, but I just wanted to make an official comment here. As I shared, my name is Paola de la Cruz Perez, and I'm a Compton member with East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice. I grew up smelling the toxic emissions coming from World Oil. And over the past few years, thanks to East Yard, have learned how to report whenever my family and I smell the oily water and get like any of the dizziness or like the stinging in our noses, or when my siblings get any nosebleeds because of how strong the smell is. And I'm just incredibly grateful for staff members who work for regulating agencies like DTSC and AQMD who help protect our lives as community members. This facility is a for-profit facility. They provide, as other folks on this call have shared, funding to our city and to community-based organizations, to schools, to individual people through scholarships. And so I can understand why it is that some people, in the interest of the organizations or perhaps even self-interest, join community calls and express their support for World Oil. But I encourage them and the department to seriously consider their operations and the risk that they pose to our health and to the environment, to the water, to the birds, to the air, and to the land. I understand that there may be good that can come from this company, but there is a reason why they are in our community in the first place. And that reason connects to racism and white supremacy. And we cannot forget that. While this specific request, right, may in the eyes of everyone help mitigate, right, improve like the equipment, let us not forget what this company does and the full scope of their operations, and the fact that they are in a predominantly Black and Brown low-income community. I will be submitting additional comments along with youth and residents from my neighborhood and the support of East Yard. And I thank DTSE staff for meeting with us today and responding to our concerns and protecting our bodies, our lungs. We will continue to fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Paola. Not seeing any more hands. I will now pass it on to Ryan.
Thanks, Elsa, and thank you everyone that provided comments. So let the record show that no one else has asked to speak and that I'm going to formally close the public hearing for DeMenno Kerdoon permit modification. So the time is currently 7:45 p.m. on Wednesday, March 5, 2025. So I'm going to turn it back to Elsa to conclude the meeting.
Okay. Next slide. I want to thank everybody who participated. Great questions, great comments, and we will have a response to comments a third time after we close the comment period, March 28th. And written comments could be sent to Gary via email or mail, as you can see on the screen. His email address is gary.hammond@dtsc.ca.gov, or you could mail it to him at 8800 Cal Center Drive in Sacramento, 95826. Once again, thank you so much for participating, taking time this evening to join us in this meeting and having such great dialogue here. So with that, I would like to say good night and stay safe.